Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 5:01. I'm Kathy Barnhart, councillor, who's now acting as deputy mayor now for the next 8 months. And pleased to see you all here today. I'm going to start with our traditional land acknowledgement. We're pleased to be here today on the traditional territory of Treaty 6 in the Métis homeland. We acknowledge all those who share a deep connection with this land. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all Canada's First Peoples, whether they be of First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich Canada's vibrant communities. We are all treaty people. The peace treaties bind us all. I'd now like to move to the next item on the agenda, which is the adoption of the agenda. Ms. Vijaya, do you have any changes to the agenda?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. We do have the request to add an additional item to the closed session, which is the broadband project update, and that would be pursuant to sections 24 and 25 of FOIP. That is the only suggested change to the agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Vijaya. Then I would ask for a member of the Committee of the Whole to actually move the adoption of the agenda. Councillor McCook. Oh.
Thank you. I move that the July 19th, 2022 Committee of the Whole meeting agenda be adopted with the addition of a new closed item, broadband project update pursuant to FOIP sections 24 and 25.
Thank you, Committee Member McCook. Now, if I would ask members of council to please vote. Thank you. Stop the vote, and that is passed unanimously. I think I forgot to vote. My vote is yes. Sorry about that. I'm still learning how this all works. Okay, now we have to go back to the agenda. There we go. The adoption of the minutes. Could I ask for a member of the Committee of the Whole to make a motion to adopt the minutes of the previous COTW meeting? Okay. Here's where it gets confusing. I've got to go back. There it is. Okay. Councillor Miller, first up.
Thank you. I move that June 21st, 2022 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes be adopted as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Any comments or questions on the minutes? No, not seeing any. Now we want to go to the voting. Here we go. Start the vote. This time I'll remember. Takes a few times. Okay, stop the voting, and then now it's passed unanimously. 7 votes came in, so that's a good thing. Okay, thank you very much. We're moving really fast here, aren't we? Not really. So the next item on our agenda is the presentations are starting. Okay. Excuse me, because it says something different on my screen than what it, there it is. Okay, presentations. First one is the department update from People Services, and that would be Ms. Montanay. You are on. So now if I can just get to the right place, and you have a mic, and then you're okay. Did you press your mic, please? Okay. Thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, closer.
Thank you. So good evening, I'm Donna Montney. I'm the Director of People Services. Thank you for having me. This presentation is just a high-level overview. This is as part of the Internal Services Department under Mike Dowler, and our focus is internally to the organization and our employees. We provide effective policies and procedures and programs to ensure that we are compliant with the applicable legislation, but further strive to ensure that our employees are competent and engaged to support the organizational culture and values to deliver exceptional services to our residents. People services is broken into 2 service areas. This is our organizational chart. So you'll see that it's health and safety and human resources. We have 9 permanent FTEs and a term co-op student. Health and safety develops and assesses our current safety systems to ensure the safety rules and regulations and standards are appropriate to the operations of the different departments. And human resources is made up of pay and benefits, a training and programs position, which is more behind the scenes that works on our different programs and such as training and development, performance reviews, researching, and project management. The HR advisor position is more of the face of the department out to the organization for the employees and the managers, and they're responsible for recruitment, compensation, classification, employee relations, and disability management. So the people services strategy encompasses the desired outcomes of a vibrant corporate culture and ingrained values, hiring, developing, and retaining employees, safe, healthy, well, and resilient employees, multi-skilled and engaged employees, and meaningful rewards and recognition. The desired outcomes support Beaumont with the achievement of its overall objectives by ensuring that we provide equality and fairness within the workplace, hire the right people with the right skills, knowledge, and attitude so that our services are delivered effectively and efficiently, appreciate and capitalize on our multi-skilled and diverse workforce, enable the enhancement of continuous improvement of Beaumont's leadership skills at all levels of the organization, do what is needed to enable employees to reach their full potential in order to improve services, develop, review, and streamline our people management processes, achieve effective human resources and health and safety professional practice to reduce risk and exposure, and have meaningful reward and recognition programs that value employee contribution, commitment, and behavior that supports the delivery of Beaumont's objectives. So organizational values are abstract ideas that guide the organizational thinking and actions. These values represent the foundation on which organizations operate. Defining an organization's unique values is the first and most critical step in its success and development. Core competencies of the organization provide a link between what the organization values and how it lives up to these values. So the City of Beaumont has defined the following values and a competency framework based on these values to help understand how to incorporate those values into the day-to-day business. So these are some of our projects for 2022. The upcoming ones for the remainder of the year is the Ats System, which is an applicant tracking system. It's HR software and it's used to organize, search, and communicate with applicants. It's a core piece of software that streamlines the recruitment process and ensures that the recruitment process, which is the first introduction to the organization for our potential employees, fosters our values and our priorities. We're also developing an employee wellness program that will support all 4 pillars of employee wellness, which is mental, physical, financial, and social health, to support employees in being safe, healthy, well, and resilient. The safety audit, which is happening in the fall, we successfully passed the external audit at the end of last year. And so this will be an internal audit that happens every year. We're also developing a training platform that will be organization-wide that supports our values and competencies listed on the previous slide. And the focus area for training will be supervisor development program, EDI training, customer service, and employee wellness. And then an EDI action plan is a multi-year plan involving many facets, beginning with a monthly communication that we started earlier this year, training and awareness to help establish what EDI means to us, and the ATS system that supports a fair and equitable process for all. So some successes that we've had this year, it's been a lot of recruitment. So we've hired 91 employees since January 1st. A lot of those hires is our summer and casual staff. We almost double in size throughout the summer. And then it's been some growth that we have been experiencing, as well as a little bit of attrition. We have launched the hybrid work from home program. So that is an ongoing program that we're continuing to evaluate. We implemented a new performance management program, launched the leadership training program, and we launched the monthly communication that focused on EDI and employee wellness topics. And then some of the challenges that the department, and I would say the organization, is seeing as a whole is the challenging recruitment marketing that's going on right now. We're seeing it across the country. We have 5 different generations for the first time ever in the workforce, so that has a lot of opportunities, but also some challenges. We're definitely seeing a change in employee expectations of their workplace and what they expect from work and what they want from work, and then navigating back to normal after the pandemic. And then I jumped on the bandwagon of some fun facts. So this is just some facts about our employees. Our average age is 35.6. One thing that I really like about this slide is it actually shows a pretty even split between a number of different age groups. So I like that. This one is our length of service. So the pyramid of how many people have been here. And again, this really represents the growth that we've experienced over the last few years, with a lot of new employees being added to the organization. The one on the left gives you a view of what our full-time complement is compared to our casual and terms. This is representative of a now in the summer, which is a lot of casual and term staff. In the wintertime, this would be less. And then you can kind of see where a lot of our employees live within the region, whether it's Beaumont, Leduc County, Edmonton. And this is just the number of employees per department, just kind of splitting it between internal and external services. External, sorry, is the orange, internal is the yellow. So you can just kind of see the split of employees there. And that's it.
Thank you very much.
Any
That was very
questions?
informative. I love the fun facts part. It's really interesting. Would any member of council have any questions for Ms. Montagny? Councillor Van Nieuwkerk.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I love the graphs and numerics as well. And I think you highlighted one of the important challenges, which is staffing everywhere. And, you know, the city hasn't been immune to that as well. I was trying to check between budget and now based on org charts, but have you seen any movement in the people services department? Has there been an up or down in FTEs in 2022, or has that remained static, or what does that look like for people services in 2022?
We have grown by 1 position, and we've also brought on a temp co-op student, which we haven't hired yet. We're hoping to for the fall. And it's just to be able to deal with the growth of the organization.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that's important too, is, you know, anticipating the growth as you go and bolting on, you know, skills and abilities where you can. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Van Nieuwkerk. Are there any other questions from any of the members of the committee? Not seeing any. I just have one, and that is my favorite question. What keeps you up at night? What is the biggest challenge of being the leader of this people services department? What's the most significant challenge that you're facing right now going forward?
You know, I think it is, I think the challenging environment right now of recruitment and how we're going to find the right people to fill the roles to make sure that there isn't an impact to services. And then I also think internally, it's mental health. It's, you know, making sure that we have the right supports in place for our employees. COVID has been really tough on everybody, and, you know, we're trying to make sure that everybody's supported.
Thank you for that. I think you hit the highlights as far as I'm concerned, as well as taking care of the people that look after all of the people in the community. So thank you very much for what you do. Don't see any other questions. Is there a member of the committee that's prepared to make a motion to accept this for information? It says Kathy Barnhart on here, but I think it means Mayor Bill Daniluk.
Sorry, didn't expect that. Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the July 19th, 2022 People Services Department update be received for information. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Committee Member Daniluk. And now I'd like the rest of the committee to please vote. Did it not go? Have you all voted? It's not showing as if the vote has happened, so I must not have hit show the vote. Maybe that would help. No, that's not even working. Show of hands, all in favor? For some reason, it didn't come up, so stop that vote. I didn't hit the stop in time. That's why. I apologize. Made you get up out of your chair. Sorry about that. Okay, we're good. Takes a few times to get that straight. All right, the next department update is from Protective Services. And that would be Mr. Melvin. There you go.
You can hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good evening, Madam Chair and members of council. Name is Jay Melvin. I'm the Director of Protective Services. Also hold the position of Fire Chief for the City of Beaumont. This report this evening provides a committee of the whole with an overview of the Protective Services, highlights the department's core programs, services, and upcoming initiatives and challenges that we face moving forward. The Protective Services Department includes the fire service and enforcement services, both of which provide comprehensive services throughout the City of Beaumont. In addition to these two core services, the department also manages the automated traffic enforcement program that is focused on monitoring and enforcing traffic in zones that have the potential of the highest risk to our residents within the city. RCMP and Alberta Health Services are also within the Protective Services portfolio, acting as a communication path between the city and these contracted services. The department also manages the city's emergency management program, ensuring the city is prepared to respond to local emergencies that affect the city on a larger scale. The Protective Services Department includes 15 full-time positions, 5 casuals, 28 paid on-call firefighter positions. And we can move to the we can go to the org chart. There we go. This is the clicker for moving forward. Okay. So presently, that is the org chart as previously detailed. We are a relatively small department for full-time staffing. Municipal enforcement will have a supervisor, a school resource officer, a CPO level 1, more of a person that's out in the community, a bylaw officer, and then we'll have 3 casual positions throughout the year. The fire service, deputy fire chief, a fire prevention officer, a training officer, and a full-time firefighter, and along with our 28 paid on call. Down at the RCMP detachment, we have a office supervisor and 4 detachment clerks, and we also have some casual clerks there to cover off overtime and holidays. I'll try this. There we go. So this is just a real quick breakdown of what some of the things that we do for the fire service. Obviously, alarms, emergency response, hazardous materials response, medical first responder, water and ice rescue, fire inspection, and education, and that's through occupant loads, plans reviews, developments within the city. Fire investigation, that is for cause and determinants and followed with the province, and motor vehicle collisions and rescue. Municipal enforcement, their program is focused on traffic enforcement, bylaw and provincial statute enforcement, animal control, and the school resource officer program is within the municipal enforcement portfolio. Automated traffic enforcement, we've talked about that previously, and that is managed by our department through myself and my admin assistant. And also the RCMP and ambulance, although don't directly report to protective services they are within my portfolio. As I stated before, it's more of a communication path between those agencies and the city. And sitting on the side of my desk is the role of the within emergency management is to ensure that the city is prepared, and me and my staff, along with the city staff, organize the training for that piece. Upcoming projects and initiatives, things that we've already done and are continuing to do throughout the year. So in first quarter, obviously, we brought forward the HERF assessment. We conducted some bylaw reviews, AHS review. Q2, which is we're into now, ATE review is ongoing. Community standards bylaw, which will be up next. Traffic safety bylaw. Q3 was the fire training grounds. The Alberta First Responders Radio Communications System is what AFRAC stands for. And the emergency management review. And into Q4, we look into updating the fire service bylaw, determining the level of service for HERF, and some staffing levels and fire apparatus equipment reviews. Q4 and beyond, emergency service station review, next generation 911, and updating some of our mutual aid agreements with our municipal partners. So some of the success and challenges that I've seen since I've been with the city, we do have an outstanding commitment from our staff within all divisions and our RCMP and Alberta Health Services. Our interoperability works very well. We're able to work across each department, and our school resource officer program is providing a great resource within the school system. Obviously, the challenges that we face along with every other department is the program funding's cost. We know about the RCMP costs and the increases that will impact the city in the future. Municipal enforcement, as the city grows, more level of service is going to be required, not only for municipal enforcement, but also for the fire service. The level of service, what will our level of service look like in the next 1, 3, 5+ years? What will our high intensity residential fire requirements be, and how that will impact the city and its residents? Our automated traffic enforcement program, as the province puts more constrictions on that program, what will that look like in the future? And obviously the underlying thing is their growing community and ensuring that we're providing a high level of service. One of the challenges that's kind of outside of our control is the medical first response and what Alberta Health Services plans to do for upgrading service to the city of Beaumont, how that will affect in the next 12, 24 months and beyond, and how we're going to incorporate that into a higher level of service for the city. So those are a quick rundown of the day in life of protective services. I'm open to any questions that you do have, and I'll turn it back over to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Melvin. Very good overview. And I see that Councillor Tessier has a question.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for the presentation, Chief. Just a couple questions on the recruitment for the full-time positions and where we're at with that.
Thank you. Nope. Wrong one. There you are.
Okay, so presently, obviously, as this was a relatively new process, we just finished running the aptitude test, which was done. Last week, the top candidates that screened off of that went to the U of A to do the firefighter physical fitness test. Next week, we're scheduled, once we get the top candidates for that, we're scheduled to do the 6 candidates that are scheduled for interviews. Once the interviews are done, we'll select a candidate. Reference checks will be done. I suspect we should have somebody on board after the summer break by the time things get rolled in, somebody relocates here. So that is the plan so far. So
Great, yeah, thanks for that background. I know obviously the process has changed and it sounds like it's a lot more professional than it used to be, and through the aptitude test and the physical. So that's great to hear. Was there a lot of internal interest in those positions?
We did have a lot of interest. I think we had a total of almost 40 candidates apply within. I think there was 6 that showed interest within the department. So we did have some good interest. So people are looking to the City of Beaumont Fire Service as an employer of choice, which is a fantastic piece. For the recruitment process, we want to make sure it was clear and transparent as possible, and the less liability to the city based on any grievances, and that's why third-party aptitude tests, U of A, physical fitness, and then we'll pick up with HR on the interview process. So that's encompassing how all that process kind of worked. It took a little bit to figure it all out, but we're pretty confident that we have a solid process that worked this year and will work in the future.
Great. That's awesome to hear, Chief. A couple more, Chair.
Go right ahead.
Just obviously the medical response is a huge issue in the province. Have you ever looked or thought of transitioning our fire service to an integrated system and the pros and cons to that? I don't know if it would actually make a difference anymore with how things are run, but just a question from your previous experience and looking at how our city is growing. So.
Correct. I previously managed an EMS contracted service for 10 years. It is a complex organization to manage, dealing with Alberta Health Services, using integrated service. I'm not sure if that would be a cost benefit to the city or more of a risk. If there was an increased level of service and that reduced the risk to the residents, I could see pushing forward with that. But right now we haven't gotten to the stage where considering a integrated service would be a value to the residential taxpayer from a cost benefit and also from a level of service. Because ultimately, no matter what call happens in this city, an ambulance needs to leave the city. And that's the biggest issue. So if you had somewhere for the ambulance to stay in the city and go, some type of facility, that would be more of a benefit. But our concern always will be is that an ambulance will always leave the city. So then what impact does that now have on the remaining fire crews that now lost 2 people in the city for several hours tied up with a patient? So it's that risk that we'll have to look forward and see if there's any benefit to it from a pretty wide spectrum on not only operational, but administrative, financial, and the logistics surrounding it.
Yeah, thanks, Chief. I would for sure agree with that, as the other counties are having issues even keeping their ambulances in-house with hospitals in their own city. So yeah, thanks for that perspective. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Committee Member Tessier. I have next up Councillor Miller, followed by Councillor Newcook. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Melvin, for your presentation. My question is regarding safety in the community. Is there plans to have town halls, for example, to relay certain safety aspects to the community for education purposes? You know, like water and ice safety, just to educate?
Within the fire service, or just within protective services as a whole?
Well, I think you already do with the RCMP. I'm not certain you guys are tied into that as well, but I think you could be. So I'm just wondering if there's plans for that or discussion around that.
We do have a plan moving forward on what our communication strategy will be, getting that information out through our communications department. That was one thing that I needed to get some clarity on, how all of that work with social media and making sure the right information gets out at the right time. Coming 2 days late is, you're better not even to post anything. But when it comes to town halls and open houses, now that we're open back up, it is something, obviously one of the big campaigns the fire service always does is Fire Prevention Week, which is a big campaign. But we're also looking to get out as much as possible. Our fire prevention education officer, when she starts getting back into the schools, getting into the senior centers, finding high-risk areas within the community, that we provide that information, not only through a social media platform, but also face-to-face, because sometimes delivering that message is heard a lot better than just that. So that's all on the radar to get done now that we're slowly, I would say, hopefully fully opened up and moving towards the fall. But the biggest thing we're going to get focused now on the fall is getting back into the schools, getting ready for Fire Prevention Week and preparing for the next season that will come here shortly.
Awesome. I think that's really important. And then my second question was regarding the school resource officer program. Could you just elaborate a little bit on what that person actually is doing in the schools and what that looks like?
So our school resource officer program is, we have one staff member that works with each schools. She will come in and do a presentation. She does have previous training that she received from the RCMP that helped her transition well into the school resource officer program. So any of those issues where there's concerns from social media about what kids may have been putting on, just understanding that difficult transition for kids these days, and the impact that social media can have on them and their mental health. Obviously, all the in-person training that she'll do in presentations in class about how certain things and behavior and what the rules are, and trying to mitigate issues before they become to a level that you got to involve the RCMP and other services within the community. So it's a very good program. As more schools grow, obviously I can see more school resource officers being required to work with the school-age children to help mitigate some of those issues and help bridge the gap between the school, families, and really the enforcement and law behind it of what kids are getting into, and also being able to link in if there's other resources either through community social development that can help out with the kids that may be in some type of need.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Next, Councillor McCook.
Thank you. Councillor Miller touched on my question a little bit. It was around the benefits of the SRO. So I believe you covered that. Just to clarify, our SRO isn't actually a police officer?
Our SRO is a community peace officer level 1.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. The casual bylaw and peace officers positions, how often do they work? Are they more on call or?
Right now, within the budget, they may be a 0.3, some of them may be a 0.5. A lot of times we look at what peak activities happening in the community, making sure we have staff on to cover that. Also covers off annual leave when people go on holidays. So we try to, as I've gotten a more awareness on the department over the last almost year, is to maximize the effort to ensure that we're out in the community. And that was my big thing, that we're no good if we're sitting behind a desk. We need to be out and visual. And so that is a big thing for the municipal enforcement department, is to be out there, be seen, and able to mitigate some of those issues before they become a concern or a report or frustration happens between neighboring residents or whatever it may be. So that's their role.
Perfect, thank you. And I appreciate that the ask to have them out in the community. I'm sure the community appreciates seeing them out and about a little bit more as well. I noticed that the staffing level review you have in Q4, will you have that done in time for budget, or is that something you're more looking to for the future?
I'm hoping to have all of that done this year with the time that I have. So that is the plan. It's a goal to be that I've set to have a look at that. But that will tie into the HERF and the level of service that we talked about earlier this year, what that's going to look like and what the impact that is. So that will all come out through the budget deliberations. So it's flagged in there for me to make sure that staffing is discussed at that time.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCook. Next up, I have Councillor Van Newkirk, followed by Councillor Monkhoff-Swain.
Yeah, thank you. Couple of questions. Just one regarding anticipated seasonal calls. So, regarding the volumes of anticipated seasonal calls, the snow and the ice in the winter, the weeds in the summer, construction debris, noise, you can predict that those types of issues are going to come up at certain times of years. certain times of the year, how is the municipal enforcement team able to proactively handle the anticipated growth in those calls? As in, you know what's coming. What are you guys doing to prepare for those types of calls?
So thank you for the question. One of the, obviously, to determine any future calls is to look at the data, what we've had in previous years. The data over the last 2 years is I wouldn't say inaccurate, but not a true representation of what some of the calls may be. Moving forward, we have transitioned to a new records management type of program that we can pinpoint the amount of calls that we're getting. We do know as people get more active in the community, we can anticipate the level of calls. But right now, with our current staffing levels, we're trying to mitigate any of those peaks, ensuring that we have staff on. Summer months, obviously, there's a lot more activity in the community with people coming and going. But right now, with our staffing levels, it can become challenging to predict or have enough staff on. A lot of our times is after hours when we get in the office in the next morning and there's 8 calls waiting for us to attend in before we start the day. So, but as more people see us out in the community, that generates more calls. Then that means we can actually go out and assist and try to mitigate those concerns or frustrations that they do have. So.
Yeah, no, that sounds reasonable. Thank you. And the next one I had here kind of surrounds like helping folks understand what does it mean when, so you come in the morning and there's 8 calls there. What does each call need? Does like help everyone understand that. So does a call equal, you have to review it, you have to respond to it, you got to open something, you got to close something, and do you have any metrics like for 8 calls, is that instantly 8 hours of work? Or, what does that look like to open, review, respond, and close each of those 8?
So a snapshot of that is obviously when I started here and when I hired my supervisor, our goal was that every call should be answered within 2 hours of a complaint, whether that's a phone call, whether that's going to see the person, but trying to determine what the actual issue is. Now, some of these calls may take 5 minutes, but there is the report that still needs to get done for tracking purposes. We need that data to say, we were there at this time, at this date, this is who we spoke to, so you can understand the legal ramifications of that. So, but it's hit and miss. Some calls, construction debris could take all day for one issue, just trying to get a hold of somebody, or it could be a dog complaint that can take 10 or 15 minutes going out to the resident. But at the end of the day, the administration off every call is sporadic. At a minimum, it's no less than 30 minutes per call for one officer to deal with it. And that's just from a paperwork standpoint to ensure that all the information is there and getting that data to that. Now, some calls, like I said, may be less than that. Some may be more, but it just takes time to review those calls. Now, obviously, those calls are from the night before, and then the start of the morning, the new calls are coming in, right? So it's a balancing act and prioritizing of work and determining which ones are the highest priority. But our goal is to at least reach out to the complainant and say, we've got your call, we're working on it, and give them some type of timeline when we're going to get back to them. And then the officer still has to close out the file once everything is done. So after he goes to the site, comes back, everything's good, close out the file. If we get another complaint on another resident again, now we have the data to say, we've had 6 calls on this, or we've had 2 calls on this, or we've had 50 calls on dogs complaints in this area. Maybe we need to do some type of communication campaign to educate the public on what may be the issue, or what may be misunderstanding of whatever said bylaw may say. So that's how we would work it.
Yeah, thank you. And, so the 8 calls that you would come into in the morning, it at minimum generates 8 reports of some kind. One might be a paragraph long and one might be pages long, and the work that you need to do to be able to generate that varies by call. And the last bit is the constant call from residents is proactive rather than reactive municipal enforcement. And I
Mhm.
don't think that's a new conversation in here. And it's probably something that we need to, juggle around come budget time and stack up against all the other needs of the community as well. I think one thing you said that is important though, is like some of the trends that you see. If you start to see a problem trending in an area, that your team is able to say, hey, there's a trend over here. What can we proactively do to reduce this call volume, right? I don't know that the community knows that your team is doing that. So I think that might be a piece that might be helpful to put out as you're talking in the community. So I appreciate your time here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Van Newkirk. Those are good points that I was thinking myself we should be raising, and you've hit the nail on the head there. Thank you. Councillor Monkoff Swain, you're up next.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the presentation. Very informative, as always. A couple of questions, two different topics. On bylaw, and Steve asked a little bit around the proactive piece. Your message was, we want to make sure that our team is out there, be seen, be out in the community. The question that I haven't been able to answer, from some of the community is recognizing that bylaw is out there in the community and driving around. In their mind, they just see them driving around. They don't actually know what they're doing, right? And so the question always comes to me, well, instead of just driving around, and I share that, they're actually doing something, not just ripping around the city, but instead of just driving around, why wouldn't they go and target some of these areas and proactively go in and check in on some of these sites where we know there are historical concerns, like Steve mentioned, around construction, all that sort of thing. So could you just maybe talk a little bit about when you say get out into the community, what do you specifically mean by that?
So this year, what we have done is we've split the community up into different zones. Every officer has a zone to check during their shift, whether that be during the day or their 4-day period. We do know, based on complaints, we do know some areas that we have, I guess, targeted or driven by or be seen there more often. And one of the things that we're trying to do is obviously we're trying to turn the program around and be more visual in the community. And I think over time, as the message gets out that, we're just not driving around, we're either responding to a complaint or we're checking up on a different area. But that's all that education piece that has been missing, that takes some time to get that information out to the public. And with our officers that are out there, we've asked them to engage in the public and the neighbors and take the time to talk to people. You can find out a whole bunch of information just by having a discussion versus a text, an email. I'm a firm believer face-to-face always works. And that is the mandate that I've given them to, get out there and talk to people. Is it a real concern? Is it a perceived concern? Is it misinformation? Depends on where they got their information. So our goal is to be out there, to be approachable in the community, but we're not there yet, but we're definitely heading in the right direction.
Yeah, thank you. And I would agree, heading in the right direction for sure. There's always a resource constraint to that, right? We could have the greatest proactive approach in the world, but we probably need 12 more folks to help you out do that, right? So it is a balance. Yeah, I think the message of these folks aren't just driving around. Like if they see something that is, contravention of a bylaw, then they're going to act on it. That's why they're out there in the community. So really appreciate your efforts on that. The second part is completely different. The new unit that the fire department is looking at. I just want to give us an update on kind of timing of when we think that is going to be ready for us here in Beaumont.
That's the aerial ladder apparatus.
Yeah. I don't know the words, so I waited for you. I just said unit, and I knew you'd help me along the
ladder
way.
truck.
There you go.
That'll
Ladder
work.
truck.
So I actually spoke to the manufacturer today. Surprisingly, or sorry, not surprisingly, there is significant delays within the fire apparatus manufacturers across North America. Our unit right now is getting the aerial device attached to the chassis. So that is a great step. And then it'll be moving back to the main factory in South Dakota to get the remaining adjustments done. We are anticipating to go down for a final at the factory in likely January. We were hoping to get down there in October, but significant delays is impacting that of getting that completed. So we are hoping for end of Q3 for it to be arrived here. The dealer will do its PDI inspection and get it registered for use in our community. And then I'm hoping by April of next year we can retire the old unit and bring the new one back in. Just a note on fire apparatus. Right now, it's in excess of 18 months from the time you put your order in till the likely time that you would see it. So we need to consider that backing when our units are due to backing that up, you know, at 18 to almost 2 years to make sure we get our paperwork in and get the approvals for a purchase 2 years down the road. So that doesn't seem to be easing up anywhere, and it doesn't matter which manufacturer, Rosenbauer, Fort Garry, Hub, they're all experiencing the same type of challenges worldwide on fire apparatus because it's such a specialty vehicle. These vehicles are not sitting on a lot. I mean, commercial vehicles aren't sitting on a lot, so you can imagine emergency vehicles are not sitting on a lot. So we're anticipating, but right now everything, she's starting to look like a fire truck. So the personnel are pretty happy about it. So
No, I appreciate that. And I think the key message there to take away is we're not down. We've still got that unit that's working now. And once this new one comes on, that one will be retired. So while there is a delay, we'd obviously prefer it sooner. We're not short a vehicle right now.
correct. We want that thing to make sure it's completely built and operational with minimal defects prior to its arrival and not get it half built or rushed.
Yeah, okay, appreciate that, and also appreciate Councillor Tessier not laughing at me through those questions. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Garcia.
For once.
I do not see any other questions from members of the committee. Is there a member of the committee who's willing to put forward a motion to accept this report, this presentation as information? Councillor Tessier, first up.
Got you covered on the north side here, Chair. So I'll move that the July 19th, 2022 Protective Services Department update be received for information.
Thank you, Councillor Tessier. Call for the vote, please. And that is passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to Mr. Melvin has another report here with us today, and that is on the Community Standards Bylaw, and this is an update, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. I better give you this.
So once again, good evening, Council. This evening, I'll give you a pretty high level update on where we're at with the Community Standards Bylaw, the overview and update. And it is to provide the committee with that update on the development of a Community Standards Bylaw. So this Community Standards Bylaw was developed to promote good neighbor relationships and to address community concerns through the regulation of conduct and activities of people in public places and privately owned property. The bylaw will address several areas of public concern, and it amalgamates the incorporation and modernization of these bylaws allows for residents to locate information more easily about standards for neighborhood issues, including noise, property maintenance, nuisance. The following bylaws will be, and their amendments where applicable, would be repealed upon passage of this bylaw. That would be noise abatement, cannabis, news and unsightly, smoke-free in public places, and the snow removal bylaw. So one of these things that the Community Standards Bylaw has really focused on are these four main areas. The bylaw itself, when it comes to public behaviors, certain things that you're going to see in this bylaw will be details surrounding littering, flyers, cause and disturbance, graffiti, interference with property, dangerous actions, fighting and bullying. So some of these things that we're presently dealing with And these are all enforced by the community peace officers. Property maintenance and nuisance, so unsightly untidilies, unoccupied buildings, nuisance, construction waste, motor vehicle repair, sidewalk snow removal, old appliances are just some of the things in the property maintenance and nuisance part of the bylaw. Noise control, when it relates to construction activity and just normal noise within the hours of between 7 and 9. And smoking and cannabis, what the rules are in public places, pretty much just to not have that on its own bylaw to tie it all in together. Once again, this is an integral bylaw that allows the community peace officer to be able to go out and action and deal with something that the public may have a concern with, whether that's against a neighbor or a dispute with a contractor, whatever it may be. This is where the community standards bylaw situation and stands with. So how our development has worked, in Q1 of this year, we developed the draft of the community standards bylaw. We got input from our internal stakeholders within the city. We did a legal review in Q2 and we conducted our public engagement strategy. As part of Q3, you'll see this come back at the committee of the whole in September. We will talk about the public engagement results. The legal review will be conducted again, and that briefing and presentation to council. Q4, everything lines up. We'll pass the bylaw, and then past Q4 is always the ongoing review and updates as needed when it comes to the community standards bylaw. Once again, the bylaw encourages residents and property owners to be respectful and responsible of their neighbors and contribute to the health, safety, and vibrancy of the city of Beaumont. We discussed the bylaws that would be repealed as part of this. So it is not only creating new information or updating with current times, it is also looking at our current bylaws and amalgamating them into one. We did consult and look at neighboring municipalities our size and in the Edmonton metropolitan region on their community standards bylaw to make sure what we had in there wasn't, out of sorts. So that was also reviewed as part of this process. So that is a very quick overview. I know you may have some questions on, is this going to be included? Is that going to be included? The big thing, our message when it comes to this community standards bylaw, this is not going to be an all-encompassing, not going to cover 100% of the public's complaints. There'll be certain things in there that we didn't think of that we'll add in. There'll be certain things in there that maybe that we would remove in the future based on how the population changes within the city. But the overlying message is this is not a mom bylaw. This is not, we're going to take care of every problem that there's going to be in the city, right? At the end of the day, neighbors need to be good neighbors. People just need to be good neighbors, and majority of the time you won't have any issues. But if you do, this document here will help you guide you in what the rules are, who do you contact, and it'll be able to provide our officers with a quicker document to be able to resolve any issues that the public may have. So I'll leave it to that, Madam Chair, and I'll turn it back over to yourself and members of councils for questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Melvin. And just to clarify, I think you're right. There are going to be questions. I know I have a couple on why isn't this here or could this be here? Is that helpful to you at this point? That's my sense, is that that's why we're having this update. So.
Absolutely, it'll be noted, I guess, in the notes, and we can look into it when we do our internal review. We'll be doing another one with our communications department and with legal and ledge services before our committee of the whole report. So if there's questions out there, we can try to answer those, or if that works with Ms. Bijaya.
Appreciate that. I see that the administration would like to speak. That's. I get Mike Schwartz's name came up, but I think that was your mic that you're on.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor. Just a note that when we bring the draft of the bylaw to the committee of the whole in September, there will be opportunity for ample discussion of the bylaw then. So it might be a little bit easier for the committee to see everything that is included when that draft bylaw is in front of you, and as well as we have a summary chart. So, I mean, we can talk broad strokes today, absolutely, but just so everyone is a little more comfortable, we will be putting the entire draft bylaw as well as the summary chart in front of the committee of the whole in September.
Okay, that clarifies, and this is really a process update to see what the timing is and to move it along. Okay, with that as a preamble, Councillor McCook, you have a question?
Thank you. Perhaps I should hold off with this one, but so just let me know if you need me to hold off. Issues with builders when they're building next door to someone, would that be covered under this bylaw? Like if you have damage to your home from a builder or damage to your property from a builder building next door, or would that go through more the dispute resolution process that we've spoken about?
If there was, I would anticipate, obviously I'm not a lawyer, but I would anticipate if there's damage to someone's property, that's a civil matter. That would be between the two parties. And Ms. Mejia, that would be correct. So that's what it would be. Nothing stopping us from going down and trying to provide some assistance from a community peace offer to say, yeah, your bundles of shingles blew off and hit the other neighbor's residence. Obviously, that's something that we can assist in. But I think one of those, when it comes to property damage, would be a civil matter, and we could escalate it up to the RCMP if it deemed necessary by our initial response. But that's how we'd probably deal with it.
Okay, so initially they could call bylaw.
I'm pretty sure that we would get the initial call that, and more because many residents may have never experienced this before. What do I do, right? And that's our role, is to, with this bylaw, guide them through the process. Okay, this is what needs to happen, and provide them some assistance. If there is some dispute resolution options, we would obviously provide that to them. So at the end of the day, our role is to give them as much information as possible so they can make their own decision.
Perfect. Thank you. I look forward to seeing the bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor McCook. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you. In September, when it comes back for the larger discussion, I'm thinking, because I've seen it in the past, that you'll be able to summarize and quantify the feedback that you've been able to get, number of survey responses and such. And will we be able to have the aggregated comments that, that sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. So just something to consider that is useful. It does take up some paper, but it's often helpful to see those aggregated comments to start seeing where the themes are coming from. So just a couple of comments there. In the survey, based upon the survey that was put out, I did notice some questions, and there was a subsequent bullet point in the theme around vehicle maintenance. And there was a little bit of a theme surrounding, to what level should people be able to do work on their vehicles at home, right? And I think we'll have to watch that a little bit carefully, and it'll be something that I'll be looking for in September, because at the same time, the city is actually approving home-based businesses that are based upon vehicle maintenance, right? So, we'll have to be careful as to what we expect of people versus what we're actually approving for home-based businesses. So, and then one of the things that happens this time of year is RVs and RV parking and stuff. Do you anticipate there being some changes to that in what's upcoming?
Yes. To answer your first question, my staff member is doing up some fantastic looking charts. She's more educated on that than I am on the aggregate data and what the results were. We did have a lot, I believe, over 250 respondents back in on the bylaw, so that was great. With the motor vehicle, I'm pretty confident that there was that clause in there, but also a clause unless it was approved under land use bylaw. So if it was permitted use within that within somebody's residence, and obviously that clause wouldn't come to it. And then your last question was again, sorry?
Just around our RV.
Oh, sorry.
Like the issues that are with RVs. And I know it's complicated, right?
So RVs are going to be under the traffic safety bylaw. That's where we've targeted that. So we kept all that with traffic safety. The RVs kind of touch traffic safety. They kind of land use bylaw where people kind of park them. So that's where they will see that. So when the public sees that public engagement in September on traffic safety and the automated traffic enforcement program, they will have the opportunity at that time to comment on how long should an RV be parked? Is it 72 hours? Is that too short? Is that too long? You know, what constitutes moving an RV? Does it need to move a foot and then the 72 hours is reset? So all of those things that we're going to try and to mitigate those concerns. But we know that RVs are always a concern in an urban area. And at the end of the day, we're just not to being too constrictive. We're trying to find that fine balance for those owners and the residents that don't own them. So.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, thanks for that clarification around it being the RVs going into the traffic safety bylaw. So September survey, all that kind of stuff. I guess my subsequent question to that then is, you know, will we have something done ahead of next RV season? You know, will this traffic safety bylaw be looked at, reviewed, and in place so that we can start doing whatever it is we make for changes for the next RV season? I think that's what residents are most looking for.
I would say that I'm quite confident that once the traffic safety bylaw has been reviewed by council, that it would be passed and in place well before the beginning of RV season next season.
Yeah, we got till like May kind of thing. So yeah.
I'm hopefully trying to get everything done by the end of the year.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I think, you know, that's one issue that I think lags, and, you know, we're going to make whatever changes we make as a community and as council. And then there, you know, people will still find a reason to have concern, right? But I think the biggest thing is that we're going to gather that feedback and try and reintegrate it back in, and everyone's going to have that opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Vanderkirk. Very good questions. Councillor Tessier, you're up next, followed by Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Chief, for your presentation. And just a comment too on the RVs. I've noticed a couple places in our city that people have parked their RV legally, or like dug out a ditch in their front yard and parked their RV, and they're actually having separate residents living in their motorhome or fifth wheel. So that's something, again, that's a tough one because it's parked, and how do you prove if they're living in there, and is that allowed? So just a comment on that, that driving around, I've noticed a couple places, and I know Edmonton has had that issue too. So I'm sure you're looking into that, but just a comment. My actual question is, you know, this bylaw is so important in a growing city. I'm really excited that we're making this change. But the other issue I'm worried about is making this change. Are we able to actually enforce this bylaw? Like, we only have one full-time bylaw officer. We saw it during the campaign where we have these bylaws that we're going to follow, and a lot of us followed them and a lot of us didn't. And then there was no enforcement on that bylaw because there was no resources to enforce the bylaw. So like we've seen in certain areas and certain subdivisions, you give an inch, they take a foot, and then that bylaw officer is swamped with work for a week. And that's only one subdivision, and we're already having 2 or 3 new ones coming up. So as you know, as a developer, when they come in and they know Beaumont has this bylaw officer that's going to be enforcing these rules, they're going to follow it instead of us being reactive. So is staffing going to be an issue with this new bylaw?
What I would be lying to think staffing is never going to be an issue. Staffing will always be an issue as the city grows and the level of service that the city demands on us. When it comes to the bylaw officer, now, as a reminder, all community peace officers and bylaw officers can enforce the bylaws, including the RCMP, but a lot of times they just, unless it's something fairly serious, they will just pass it to us on that. One of the things with the community standards bylaw will be is that it's really that larger document that our community peace officers, when they're out there dealing with the public, that they can refer to. And I can't comment on what was done in the past. All I can say is that what our goal is for the future is to be able to answer those calls, to ensure that we don't have any of those lingering issues that nobody's been here and we're sick and tired of calling. At the end of the day, we don't know unless people call. And without any data to say that you've called, then we determine that it's a non-issue if you haven't made the call. Now, that's easy to say because some people are hesitant to phone and complain because what if it comes back on me? So there's those complexity of issues just in how the public interacts with each other. But at the end of the day, back to your first question, staffing will always be concerned, but our role is to try to continue to provide the same level of service and identify issues when they need to be identified based on the rapid growth of the city. So that is something that you'll see come budget season. All the magical things I've put in the protective services department to ask, but obviously a bylaw community peace officers is really the key because they can do traffic and bylaw at the same time. Where a bylaw officer, not all they can enforce, but they enforce bylaws. They don't do traffic or moving violations. So the community peace officer can do that. Even our school resource officer can enforce bylaws and traffic. So they're not restricted on where they're I guess working that day. They can do a variety of things. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, for sure, Chief. And just a comment too, like we're building so many new construction homes, commercial, and I feel like we're having a tough time keeping up and it makes our city look a little messy. And that's a major complaint from residents because there's a lot of new residents moving into new areas. So looking forward to budget time. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Tessier and Councillor Miller.
Thank you. Thank you again, Chief, for the second presentation. The only question I had was regarding cannabis use and if you anticipate anything in the new bylaw that is going to be focused on noxious odors. I know from what I've learned, it's a tough subject or issue to battle. So I'm just wondering if you've had conversation around that or what your thoughts are.
So you will see some comments when it comes to those smells in the community. It's one of those things that really came on after the fact, that after everything got legalized and medical cannabis and medical grow ops and then allowing them in your community. So those things we've heard from the residents. I've received phone calls many times on the issues and concerns from neighboring properties. So we are going to address it. It's still fairly new, but we're not the only municipality looking at it. I know City of Winnipeg was looking at it. There are other municipalities trying to, how do we deal with this issue now that it's become an issue?
Yeah.
That wasn't projected to be a concern, especially in this community. So it's in the current bylaw wording around that, dealing with ventilation systems for those things. It'll be a challenging piece anytime when you come into those determining what somebody believes is acceptable or not. For a smell or a noise or a, that's always very subjective when it comes to that. So you'll see wording around that. It is what our legal team believes that we would be able to enforce. So I'll be very open to your input on our thoughts on how that wording looks and is it going to be able to solve our issue? We don't know that yet.
Right. Yeah. Thank you very much. Like you said, we're not the only municipality. I've heard the same thing, kind of from other ones that it's challenging because what might be tolerable for one may not be for the other. So it's understandable. So thank you for explaining that. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. And Councillor Tessier, you'd like to be back on.
Sorry, I forgot to add one more thing too, just to comment because I heard it on the campaign trail for just cannabis location stores within school locations was, if you look in our city, there's some that are pretty close that were, I don't know if is that in our current bylaw right now, or is that something like in the cannabis bylaw and does it need to be looked at?
I'm pretty sure there's a provincial regulation on how far they can be within schools and playgrounds. I don't know the what that distance is, but I don't know if you, is it anything? in
Just
their
a
land use
comment that
bylaw?
it's obviously out there. I
Yeah.
don't need to know the exact distance, but
I believe
100
that,
meters.
I believe that they need to meet those regulations to get their permit from the province. So if the province sets those minimum locations, then I guess if they've met that requirement, then there may not be much for us to do if we don't have it in these saying otherwise. But there's nothing in the community standards bylaw that addresses that, because that's held by another legislation.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tessier. I see that the CAO would like to speak.
Yeah, just to build off of what Director Melvin was saying, we've had this issue raised to us before. And in a circumstance, at least one circumstance, we had the cannabis store approved for that location, and then the school was built. So it's a tough one. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Interesting. Thank you very much. I do not see any other questions. And the only comment I would make as well is I know when you're coming back, you've already mentioned dispute resolution will be definitely considered as part of the engagement. And I know you've heard from council before that we're looking at ways in which we can help citizens to solve their own problems if possible, but they need help. And so looking forward to seeing what you'll be coming back with in that regard. And you're shaking your head, so I know it's going to be part of that report. We don't have to go there now. Okay. Thank you very much for that. Is there a member of the committee who's willing to accept this presentation for information? Councillor Miller.
Sure. I move that the July 19th, 2022 Community Standards Bylaw Update Report be received for information.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Councillor Miller. Could I ask members of the committee to please vote? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Melvin, for your presentation on both of those reports today. Members of the committee and the audience, we have a 6:30 time specific, and I believe we're at that point on the agenda right now. And so it is 6:12. I would like to call a recess, if that's okay, Ms. Bajetta, for 10 minutes or 5? 10 minutes would be fine for members of the staff to be present. So thank you very much. We'll take a recess for 10 minutes. What do we do with that?